Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Whitetail Anonymous Podcast number 12, part 2. We are again with Gordon Whittington, me and Josh. Where we left off last time, we're gonna kind of pick up with more of the hoaxes that have happened. I always think they're pretty interesting, and most other people do too. Just to read about them and see what people have to say and the stories behind them. That's pretty awesome. Gordon, say hey again.
Well, guys, I'm glad to talk about whitetails, real or otherwise. As long as they're big, we tend to cover them. So that might be whichever one you want to.
That might be a great title for this podcast: Whitetails, real or otherwise. I kind of like that. But let's start here. Kind of a famous buck in '98. The Rumpala buck. Is it true? Is it real? Is it real or is it otherwise? What's your take on it, Gordon?
Possibility that he did kill the deer that he was photographed with, and that the rack is real. I cannot rule that out. Just because. There's no evidence to the contrary.
Mm-hmm.
There's no forensic evidence. There's no admission of altering a rack, of pulling some kind of a hoax on his part. He just came out with this giant deer and then immediately just dropped out of sight with it, and it has remained out of sight really ever since. So I can't, it would be crazy for me to say that, I know it's fake.
Yeah.
Now, my gut feeling is that it is not 100% as put forward by him originally, but I don't know. I've got nothing to back that up, really. That's just from being in the game a long time, and partly, to some extent, it's the behavior of the hunter. But it's also, here's what it all comes down to, guys, and this is true. I don't care whose deer it is, what it scored, where it's from, what he killed it with, or anything else. The bottom line is the burden of proof is not on us to prove that it's fake.
Yes.
It is always on the hunter, and it could be a guy with a Boone and Crockett muskox. It could be a guy with a Pope and Young bear. It could be anything that's measured. The burden of proof is always on that person to bring it out, have it measured, certified, entered, and approved, and at that point you have something. Mitch Rumpala has nothing because he didn't do that. Now, you can ask yourself why, and I don't know the answer to that, but I will say this, it's not worth a whole lot of thought, especially here almost 20 years later, to wonder if it's real, since it's kind of a moot question, in my opinion. I don't think the deer will ever come to light again. And again, this is assuming that he killed it and that it's scored, the rack is unaltered, that it's eligible for entry, yada, yada, yada. So, and if any of that is not true, then naturally it's not going to come out.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I'm kind of left. To some extent, I'm left like everybody else is, because I've not been allowed to see it with my own eyes and put my hands on it, and that's very rare for a top end deer that I can't get permission to at least look at it.
Yeah. What did the whoever scored it come up with on that deer?
Well, it kind of depends on which day you ask which person. It was touted as being maybe as high as 218 net to start with. It was later, you heard scores at 216 something. All these scores were going to be higher than Milo Hansen's 213 and 5/8, which had been shot really only 5 years before. And of course, Mel Johnson's Pope and Young world record typical is 204 and 4/8. So it was clearly going to blow that away. However, at the time, Mitch's bow was too much let off to be eligible for Pope and Young, but that wouldn't affect anything now because, of course, they raised the let off minimum or the maximum. So the deer theoretically would still be eligible for entry into Pope and Young. He, of course, signed a contract, an agreement with the guy, John Butler at Buck Forage Oats, who was representing Milo Hansen's deer at deer shows. And John said, look, here's the deal. This guy's claiming that he's got a world record, that we don't want to book the Hansen buck in because this other buck's bigger. And so at that point, John said, look, we're being damaged here in trying to promote the Hansen buck, which has been certified by a deer that is currently still just a rumor.
Yeah.
So he put it forth to Mitch in that way. Mitch signed an agreement that he would not enter his deer into Boone and Crockett as long as the Milo Hansen buck was the world record in BNC. Now, and to my knowledge, he received no compensation for signing that. I'm pretty confident that's the case. Now somebody would say, well, that just proves it's fake, because who in their right mind would do that? Well, it doesn't prove anything still. It just seems suspicious that a person who had the real McCoy would agree to that. Yeah. At least in my opinion. That's all it is.
No, I'd have to agree with you. It'd have to be a pretty big check to keep your mouth shut, to be honest. That's
And he was out for, what was it, like $10,000 just to have the ear X-ray to prove it was real?
There were at least two different parties that said they would pay him $10,000 just to have it X-rayed.
Wow.
And one of them said they'd pay $10,000. Somebody else says, I'll match it. And it may be that it got to be more money than that, but and one of those people was a personal critic of Mitch's up in Michigan. And again, you're just led to think that, boy, if you could get $10,000 from a guy that's kind of your nemesis and prove yourself real at the same time,
why would you not do it?
Who on earth wouldn't do that? But Mitch did not do it. Now, again, it doesn't prove anything. We know that, but it's circumstantially, you'd say it's highly suspicious, just based on every event that occurred after the kill. That's not even to get into could a guy kill in Grand Traverse County, Michigan, where a 150-inch deer is a really, really big deer. Could a guy there kill a 216 or whatever it was with a bow?
It's hard to swallow.
Deer can come from anywhere, just like the Tucker buck from Tennessee, the muzzleloader buck. I mean, it doesn't have to be a history of giant deer in an area to produce one. But when you fold that into all the other, strange elements of the Ron Pola story, it seems unlikely to me that it's 100% legit as claimed. And again, that's all we've got is a claim, and that claim is almost 20 years old now.
Yeah, it is. It would be a giant deer. A question for you here, Gordon. Why does Boone and Crockett have all these guidelines, like let-off guidelines? I mean, draw weight, whatever they have. I mean, why are there so many different?
Say, where did they start? Well, they began, in the early '60s, and at that time, it was really primitive by today's standards. I mean, it was longbow, recurve. Wilbur Allen was, many years away yet, later in the 60s, before even the first prototype of a compound bow had ever even been developed. So at the time they started, archery truly was archery in the old school, in the old school sense, like Howard Hill and the early, some of those guys like early Fred Bear. Some of those people, I mean, that's basically what bow hunting was. Well, every time they advanced the technology, of course, the traditionalists would say, well, that's not archery anymore. That's not bow hunting. I remember talking to a guy named Don Brasper, and Don Brasper, I'm pretty sure has passed on, but he was fairly elderly when I talked to him when I wrote my World Record Whitetails book back in the late 90s. And the reason I wrote a chapter about Don was because he had killed what I believe was the first non-typical Pope and Young world record. This is before Del Austin killed Mossy Horns, and he had killed this deer in the late 50s, a 186, I believe it was, non-typical, in a cattail swamp up in Minnesota. Well, Don told me that, he shot that deer and got it measured, and, come to find out it was a world record. It was just one of those early big deer that happened to get killed with a recurve bow. But what was interesting was Don told me that he said he was in a bow club up in, I believe in the Twin Cities area, and he said, we used to have the same arguments that people have today, but about different stuff. And when it came to archery equipment, he said, I remember when somebody came into the club one night at a meeting, and they had some kind of a pin or something like taped onto the window of their recurve as some kind of a sighting device. And then he said, I remember somebody in the club saying, well, if you're going to do that, you might as well use a rifle.
Yeah.
And we look at it today and say how laughable that, what somebody would compare, like a recurve bow with some kind of a metal pin for a sighting reference, to a rifle. What would those same guys think of today's compound bows?
Yeah.
I mean, they'd say that's something out of Star Wars,
Yeah.
And so I do think that the same, gradually, it's the inline muzzleloader, scopes on muzzleloaders, laser rangefinders, cellular trail cams. I mean, all these different elements. It's hard to sort them out and say, okay, what's fair chase and what is going by the spirit of the rules of fair chase and free range hunting. And sometimes it's difficult because the lines get pretty murky.
Yeah. That's I think a lot of hunters now, especially bow hunters, have that same outlook towards crossbows.
Sure.
And I guess I can be a prude about them too. What's the difference in that and a rifle? So I guess I kind of see where they're coming from now that you've explained that.
Well, here's the thing about crossbows that's interesting to me is that, and I've shot deer with crossbow, vertical bow, obviously rifle, muzzleloader, whatever. I shot one a couple of years ago in Texas with my flintlock, where I took part of an old arrowhead and I used it for my flint and killed a deer with it.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of old school. So I can get old school if somebody wants to get that way, but I just look at it and say, here's the deal. I would rather somebody shoot well with a crossbow than to shoot poorly with a vertical bow, because I want the deer, if you're going to be shooting at something alive, I want you to either miss it or hit it right.
Yeah.
I don't want anything in between. It's the same way with no scope on a muzzleloader. Well, if a big deer walks out 150 yards and the guy's sitting there with no scope, he's probably going to take a poke at it anyway because it's a big deer. Well, if he's going to do that, I want him to be able to see where he's shooting.
Yeah.
I want him to be able to hit it, and so you start to go back to what's fair chase. Sometimes, what's fair to the animal sometimes is a more lethal weapon because I'd rather have a deer, hit well. I don't care what you hit him with. I'd rather have him hit well than hit poorly, because that's not helping the deer. It's not helping us.
No, I agree with you there. And then, we've kind of, I've heard some people that have had flack. You said cellular trail cameras. Josh and I are huge on them. We love them. We run 15 plus, where we hunt out of state. I mean, that's really our eyes in the woods when to be there. So we're go ahead.
If you look at trail cameras, Montana, I think, is the only state where you can't run trail cameras in open hunting season. Now, I would be the first one to say that there are a lot of younger guys now that, because they never really had to go into the woods without cameras, I'm not saying they're not good hunters. They are good hunters. They're really good hunters. Some of them are just flat out killers.
But the woodsmanship's not there.
But there's a lot of talent, of hunting talent, that's lying dormant in some of these guys because they have never really learned the woods without the benefit of cameras.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing to me. Again, it kind of shows my age, I guess, but I really, if somebody said you could never use a camera again, my take on it would be, well, okay. I mean, that's fine. I mean, I don't think I'll be as effective, but it's still deer hunting.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to go out, we're going to look for sign, we're going to try to set up on the right trail, try to kill him when he comes by, or rattle him in, or whatever. But and a lot of deer are still killed without trail cameras.
Yeah.
It's just that it's getting to be more uncommon.
Well, especially when you can get them at Walmart for $30.
Or that are going to say, well, I'm not ready for hunting season because I don't have a big buck pegged in one spot that I can go in and, really try to kill him right in this one place. Well, I think I'd like to see people kind of expand their horizons a little bit and say, look, let's look at the whole home range of a deer. Let's look at the natural patterns, especially in non-baiting states, where you say, look, let's try to figure out what these forages are, and let's try to figure out why deer are moving from one area to another at a certain time of year. Why, when they're going to move into this one little valley because there's a pocket of does in there, and and we're doing that with cameras. It's just that there's a lot of people that are kind of using the camera as a crutch. And again, that's no problem with the technology, and there's nothing illegal about it. I'm not even saying it's unethical.
No.
I'm just saying I think a lot of people have missed out on some of the mystery of hunting by just going out without cameras or in a place that they don't have a big deer on camera and just saying, hey, I'm going to set up and see what happens. Because that really is that's a fun way to hunt.
Well, it's kind of like I say, my favorite part of the hunt is the adventure. With the trail camera, some of the adventure's gone. You know what's there.
Him is that without cameras, he said he's always ocean fishing.
Yeah.
He said he feels with cameras he's fishing in a pond. And that's got nothing to do with the difficulty of killing an animal. He said he doesn't want to know every big buck on his property.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of big bucks, but he said, I still like being surprised and shocked once in a while about what I see. And it's harder to do that when you run a ton of cameras and you run them for years in the same piece of ground. But that's also, I can turn it right back around and say, that's what gets a lot of people hooked on deer hunting and land management and buying into the whole community aspect of deer hunting is feeling like, hey, we're living with these deer, we're watching them, they're our deer, they're deer that we want to protect and nurture and make their lives better, even though we're trying to kill them. And a lot of people feel like once they get to know those animals more individually, that's easier for them to buy into that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it could go either way.
I would agree.
On that side of it, I mean, when I started running them a lot, and I don't know, 08, 09, when my kind of addiction took off, and I've got a bump, but they've helped me with knowing the potential of certain properties and knowing what's there, and it's easier to pass on to younger deer or whatever, and let deer reach for.
And that's a big factor too, because there was a time when if you didn't have a video camera, a handy cam with you, and I saw this in Texas where people would start to use the video they shot from the stand of the deer they didn't kill. That kind of became a substitute for having to shoot a bunch of these bucks that really didn't need to be shot yet. But some guys would say, if you came in and you never had a picture of one, you didn't have any trail cameras, you didn't get any video, and you guys say, well, I saw a good one today. Somebody, yeah, right, sure you did. Why didn't you kill him? Well, then, the guy might say, well, shoot, I've got to shoot this deer just to prove I saw him, and maybe he's a 3-year-old deer that didn't need to be shot, but the guy said, well, nobody believes me if I don't bring him in. Yeah. Well, if you had him on trail camera, if you had him on video from your stand, it
validates
kind of cool on him, as they say. So
yeah, it validates
it absolutely has saved a lot of deer.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you when you said the woodsmanship's gone. I see a lot of these people now, and I guess I'm as a victim with it too. Is I rely solely on a trail camera and don't get out and look for the sign as much as I should. And
well, too, here's the thing too. When people are starting to hunt smaller and smaller pieces of property, and that's just the reality these days. Places are getting smaller, not bigger. That for the most part.
Yeah. And
because of that, you say, well, look, for me to spend days and days and days every off season tromping and learning every mushroom on this 27 acres, by the time deer season got here, there wouldn't be a deer on it.
True.
Well, there's a lot to be said for that when you're hunting 27 or even 270 acres. If you're hunting 18,000 acres, then yeah, you need to roam a little bit and figure out the ground. Unless you're hunting on national forest.
Yeah. That's my grandpa. Every time he went in the woods, he came out with something. He never even owned a trail camera. It's just the woodsmanship. He was the ultimate woodsman.
That's a hunter.
My enjoy is actually I'm reading the title of it. Actually, Mr. Apollo's got a chapter in it. I like going back and reading some of the pre-trail camera books, some of the older books, some of the Winslow brothers stuff, Roger Thor, stuff like that. I love reading them old books when it was all woodsmanship and seeing the tactics they used, before technology kind of took a foothold in it. And everybody faces, most of the scouting tactics that we say, like we said, is, trail cameras were probably 60 or 70% of it. A lot of it.
And that has absolutely not been a bad thing, really. If you look at it, I mean, may sound like, the guy's down on trail cameras. No, I absolutely love trail cameras. I just think I would like to see them be part of a broader strategy as opposed to just purely
throwing out a corn
I got
pile.
One camera out, I got one corn pile. I go, that's where I sit. That's where I'm going to kill him. You know, and never even really learn the woods.
Yeah.
I mean, or learn anything else about your deer. I mean, to me, that's a little bit, that's a little bit limiting.
No, I agree wholeheartedly with that statement there. You know,
I try to get. I love deer lab. I don't know if you fooled around with deer lab video or not, Gordon, and seen some of the things based off cameras. But I love running my cameras and getting such a pet peeve of mine is people not setting a date and time. But I love going back and finding. I look at the weather. I look at everything whenever I mature deer on their feet during the daylight, and I just love breaking that down and pulling all that information from it, trying to put a plan together to kill them or see it. This one deer I actually just done a thing last couple of weeks. I went back the last 3 years and looked at all of his daylight pictures. And I'd always, he beds on 2 points. Well, primarily, he beds on 2 points. I went back and checked the wind direction on when I was getting on each of those points, and I've got it narrowed down to a couple different winds, just bedding on each of them based on, a south wind or a north wind. So he's got the wind with him. I wouldn't have figured that out if it wasn't for cameras and going back and looking at the north weather with it.
It's just data. It becomes data. I mean, used to incidental sightings or, hey, I saw a big track down in crossing Jones Creek or whatever. I mean, all that was data, sort of. But now you just got more of it. Yeah. I mean, now you can say, hey, I know this was on the 3/4 moon, and I know he came by, and I know he came from the left, and I know woods back that way. I can start to put the picture together, and like I say, particularly if you see different patterns on different conditions, and all of a sudden you really do learn something.
Yeah.
And the deer I killed in 2014 was basically the same type of deal. He was using actually one of the same points. Every time I had a daylight picture of him out that point, it was with the northwest wind. And the way that wind does, it was blowing up this big holler, and the wind was, he would use it, hitting quartering into his face from that point, and he was always coming up that point with that wind. And the first northwest wind I got, we went up there and hunted, and I killed him that morning.
But strategy, I mean, people think that there's no strategy if you got cameras out and he's a deer you've seen before and you got 14 pictures of him and then one day you just kill him. Well, I mean, yeah, but there's a ton of big deer gets on camera that nobody ever even sees from a stand.
Yeah.
And it's not like, I got a picture of him, I've got him dead. Well, no, you got a picture of him,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I just mentioned, I've got 4 years of pictures of him, and I myself have never laid eyes on him from the stand.
Mm-hmm.
People hunt with me have, but I've never seen it.
That's much more common than people think. And so again, the camera sometimes is a little bit of a tease because if you're hunting 9 acres, and I've seen it here in Georgia, you got a big deer coming through, but you're hunting 30 acres in a subdivision, between subdivisions, and the deer is never on camera before 1 a.m. I'm just telling you, he probably doesn't live on that 30 acres. I mean, he might, but he wouldn't always be getting there in the middle of the night if he was coming from close,
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it tells us what not to do sometimes as much as it tells us what to do. I mean, sometimes you find this big sign and you say, man, he's right here. But then you set a camera and you realize, he's right here at 1 a.m. and I can't hunt where he's coming from in daylight. So sometimes that's just kind of telling you maybe he's not a huntable buck in your situation, and yet you didn't know that till you got the camera.
Yeah.
And I've got another deer that's kind of that point you're getting at is last year he disappeared on me. I call him Swoop, and I think he's 9 or 10 years old. He's super grown. I've had pictures of him for 5 years. He's pure, the first year I got pictures of him. But anyway, I run on this property. I think I had 27 cameras out last year, and I never got him after October. Just because I didn't have a picture of him didn't mean it didn't help me, because I ruled out all those areas so it gives you a better idea where he was at. So I didn't get him nowhere else. I've got a pretty good idea where he was staying last fall. I don't know why he went there, why he done what he done, but I think he got pushed out of the area. But that kind of helped me narrow down another area where I might be able to catch up with him, because he didn't show up nowhere else because I didn't have him on camera.
Well, that's a good point too about, if you don't have cameras out and you're hunting some big sign, let's say, boy, it's a big scrape line here, big rub line, whatever, big track, and you sit there and, a good buck comes by and you kill him, without trail cameras, you're not always even sure if it's his sign.
True.
I mean, you could say that, well, I got him, and then you leave and you don't come back all year, but for all you know, you didn't even kill the big one.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have any documentation of what's coming through there, and so you just assume that the deer you shot was the one, but he may not have been.
Yeah, I think it kind of boils down to the whole back to what you said. I mean, each person makes their own standards of what is and what's not.
Sure.
And what's ethical, what's not. Well, and I guess that's what brings us together. It brings us together to support the whole community. Either for or against, bait pile or not. Whatever you want it to be.
Concerns about a certain way of doing it is not right, or that's not how it ought to be done. And they're either talking about, an inline muzzleloader, a crossbow, whatever it is. That could be an expandable. It could be anything, but particularly comes into play when you're looking at really intensively managed property. And I'm not even going to talk about high fence, just places that are really, really good properties in really good areas, and people really know what they're doing. They've been at it a while. They put a ton of money and effort into it. They got a lot of cameras. They got a lot of fancy stands, and they kill big deer. And people who don't have that situation will tend to resent that.
Yeah.
They just would call it human nature or whatever, but they don't like their deer off the WMA being compared to those deer because they feel like it makes them look like less of a hunter. And I'm assuming this is what people think. I don't know what anybody thinks, but in general, I think their fair taste concerns are more about what's fair to me, having to compare my deer to his deer. It's not fair taste from the deer's perspective. It's fair taste to the hunter's perspective.
True.
And I think that honestly, again, it gets back to human nature and ego and all this, big deal made over big deer. But and of course, that just kind of has come with the territory now because we've got. We do make a big deal out of big deer. We love them.
Yeah,
we love to look at them. We love to try to figure out how to kill them and grow them and all this stuff. And when somebody kills a giant, we celebrate it, and I think we should. I mean, it's a special thing. But some people don't like it when somebody else kills the special deer.
Yeah.
And that kind of tears us apart a little bit.
Well, guys, I think that's a pretty good conclusion point there. I think we, it's comes down to. What do you think's ethical, and if as long as it's legal, and if your mind it's ethical, I mean, you go for what you do, hunt your way, and go from there. But Gordon, I'd like to thank you for coming on with us today, giving us your time. You didn't have to do that. Me and Josh are just small timers trying to live out a dream, and we really appreciate you giving us an opportunity.
Well, believe me, we're all small timers when it comes to figuring out big deer.
Yeah.
Because if we weren't, we'd kill more of them.
Yeah,
right?
you're exactly right.
I appreciate the opportunity to get on with you guys. I can tell you guys are real hunters and that you really love big whitetails. And as long as we're all kind of in the same boat, I mean, let's all celebrate the whitetail and just keep doing what we do.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing everything legally, and yet I ain't got a problem with nothing. Now, anyone choose to chase them at all. If we're all one big family, we need to keep that mindset, support each other, no matter what we each will do.
No, guys, thank you. Hold on, man, I'm losing my mind here. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Whitetail Anonymous Podcast number 12. This will be the conclusion of it. We want to again thank Gordon Whittington for coming on with us. Remember, this podcast is brought to you by Ozonics Hunting. We would like to thank them again for letting us be part of the team. Check them out, ozonicshunting.com. We're pretty close to the giveaway. If you guys would go check out the page, Calculated Killers, this podcast will be uploaded onto it. And we're about 300 likes away from it. So real close. Again, Ozonics Hunting. Thank you guys for checking us out. We appreciate it very much.